You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear 2 teachers, Andrew and Katie, discussing the coming excursion of their language class. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Well, we have this school excursion plan, but when exactly is it? Is it this Tuesday or Wednesday?
Well, it can't be Tuesday with the English tests taking place.
Ah, right, not Tuesday but Wednesday.
That's right, all day Wednesday, taking a bus outside the city.
The excursion is on Wednesday, so Wednesday has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Well, we have this school excursion plan, but when exactly is it? Is it this Tuesday or Wednesday?
Well, it can't be Tuesday with the English tests taking place.
Ah, right, not Tuesday but Wednesday.
That's right, all day Wednesday, taking a bus outside the city.
And where are we going?
Last month we went to Arthur Island, so this time we're going to the animal park.
Arthur Island was okay, but it was too cold. Let's hope the weather for this week's excursion is better. I don't suppose animals care about bad weather, but I certainly do. Have you heard the forecast?
Yes, and it's not too bad. Basically, they're saying Monday will be sunny.
Good.
But then the weather will change.
Not so good.
Yes. Tuesday we'll have some showers, but by Wednesday, the day of our excursion, it will be, well, their words are cold and cloudy.
Cold and cloudy. Well, as long as it isn't wet and rainy, I'm happy enough. We won't need umbrellas, just warm clothing. And what time will we get there?
Let's see, the bus picks us up at 8:30 a.m. and then it's an hour and a half on the road, so we arrive at 10 a.m. Sorry, with the 15-minute break, that will actually be 10:15 a.m.
That's early enough. Then all our students can see the animals, have their fun, and do whatever they want to do.
Well, one fun event planned that day is Birds of Prey.
What's that?
That's when they bring out several birds of prey, eagles, falcons, kites, those sorts of birds, and throw pieces of meat into the air, and the birds swoop down and eat them. It's quite impressive.
Sounds great. Birds of prey. Are there any other activities?
There's a catered lunch at the park restaurant. We've already paid for that. And in the afternoon there's... Well, I had a choice between the reptile display and the koala handling. In the reptile display, the students can handle live pythons and various other snakes.
Surely they'd rather hold koalas.
I'm sure, but the koalas can't be handled unless the weather's sunny, and given the forecast, I thought it better to choose the reptile display.
That's a shame. These Asian students would love the koala handling.
Yes, I know, but we can't control the weather.
And then we get back. What time will that be?
We leave the park at 4:30, but then we face traffic, so we won't get back until well after 6 p.m. It will most likely be 6:30, but that's better than the last trip. We didn't get home until 8:30 that time.
Yes, that was a bit too late, wasn't it?
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Andrew, I understand you've been doing some research regarding the breakdown by nationality of our student body. That must have produced some interesting results.
You're right. I got some statistics from head office.
I would imagine that most of our students are either Japanese or Chinese.
You imagine right. But it's the Chinese who constitute the majority, but only just. I had thought Koreans might be second, but it's actually the Japanese, quite close behind. It's somewhat surprising, but obviously all those study tours that our university markets in Japan are bringing in students.
What's the breakdown exactly?
Japanese are a quarter of the whole, which is considerable. Last year they were only 16%, so that market has grown nicely. The only other proportions of some weight are the Indonesians and Koreans, about the same. Indonesians at 15% and the Koreans are a little higher, not like last year when they were less than 10%.
I thought we'd have more Indonesians than Koreans.
Well, as I said, they're about the same. Just like the Saudi and Thai student numbers, almost the same also, both just under 10.
Which one is bigger?
Thai students number just a fraction more. As for the other nationalities, collectively they're only 3%, so it wasn't worth giving each of them a separate category. I just grouped them under other. That's Vietnamese, South American, a couple of Russians, and so on.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Part 2. You will hear a radio presenter interviewing someone about the Hagley Food Festival. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 13. Now listen and answer questions 11 to 13. Now, here's something that I'm very much looking forward to. Hagley Food Festival takes place this weekend, and we're lucky to have Julie Smart with us in the studio today to tell us all about it. Welcome to the show, Julie. Another year and another great festival to look forward to.
Good morning, Tim. Yes, the festival has been such a huge success with the public that it's hard to believe it was first held just 4 years ago. In fact, there have been 3 events. This year's will be number 4. Sadly, we had to cancel last year due to the terrible weather that weekend, but everything's looking good for this one. In fact, I'm really excited about this year's event. We've been fortunate enough to attract 2 new members to the organising committee, one of whom has a wide range of experience in running festivals, and the other has lots of industry contacts. Judging by the interest we've had, this year looks like being the busiest so far. We're expecting record crowds, and we've planned loads of additional activities. So, if your listeners are interested in coming, we'd suggest getting there nice and early to get the most from their visit.
That's good to know. Planning such a large festival must involve a lot of work and a lot of people.
Yes, it does. But we're lucky to have a brilliant team of volunteers. We couldn't manage without them.
Before you hear the rest of the radio interview, you have some time to look at questions 14 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 14 to 20. So, when can we look forward to attending?
Well, we can only start to get the site ready a day before the festival opens, so our volunteers will be working all day on Thursday. That means the site will be closed to visitors until the next day, Friday the 30th. And then we'll be there right the way through until Sunday. We open at 12 p.m. on Friday and stay open until 10 p.m. every evening. We'd have liked an 11 o'clock closing time, but public transport stops running at 10:30. We're encouraging people to use buses and trains to reduce traffic in the area, which is why we're stopping early enough for people to get away in time. We've also tried to keep costs down, and this year, for the first time, we've introduced a weekend pass for £15 per person and £10 for children under the age of 16. Of course, you can pay by the day if you prefer. That's £10 for adults and £6 for children. The entrance fee covers things like the children's entertainment and access to all the cooking demonstrations, which we think are worth the entrance fee on their own. Oh, and before I forget, I've been asked to point out that we're offering free parking on site, and visitors are asked to use this rather than the streets in or near residential areas, as we don't want to upset local people. For those travelling to the festival by train, we're running a shuttle service. That's a double-decker bus every half hour from the station to the site. This is also available to take people back to the station.
Wonderful. So, what kind of things will be taking place?
Well, based on feedback from previous events, we've made a few changes this year. A significant development is that we've partnered with a local organisation, Food for the Homeless, and there'll be several fundraising activities during the weekend that visitors can support. We've got some very famous chefs you'll recognise from TV giving demonstrations, and some of them will be signing copies of their latest book if you're interested in buying one. There will, of course, be a large number of stalls selling a huge variety of food from around the world. There's a slight change to the advertised programme, as the Vietnamese stall won't be with us this year. One new idea we're trying out is a second-hand book stall. Pop along and pick up a bargain. Or even better, donate some of your old books. What else? Oh yes, we all know there's growing demand for organic food, and visitors will be able to purchase a variety of fruit and vegetables from our organic stall holders. Finally, in our children's area, there'll be lots of child-friendly activities, including colouring worksheets to encourage them to learn how to cook.
That all sounds brilliant, Julie. I can't wait for the weekend. That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 3.
Exam Practice Test 5, Listening Part 3. You will hear a university tutor talking to 2 social science students about a project they are doing on the impact of technology on people's working lives. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
OK, Kiara and Finn, can you tell me how your project is going? Your general topic was the future of work, wasn't it?
Yes, we've read a lot of articles on it. Some were more interesting than others. There were a couple of writers that just made some strong statements without really backing them up.
The problem is, it's such a big topic. Some of the articles were aimed at graduates, and some of them were targeting people who've been in work for years. We should have narrowed down our topic before we started searching.
But anyway, the focus was always the changing nature of jobs, how it's all happening so quickly.
Exactly. Every single article said we can forget the way things used to happen. Like you started out as an apprentice, and then you stayed in the same company for years. That's over.
I see that you've highlighted job title in your notes. Why is that?
I think for some people, a job title used to define them. It was their identity. They worked their way up from the bottom, and eventually, one day, they became manager or head of department. And even in their social circle, outside of work, they wanted other people to know how long they'd been in a job.
And now?
It looks like we're moving away from the term job title. So, instead a lot of businesses are hiring people to work on a project done or lead a team. But the contracts are temporary.
Finn, do you think that's a big issue for young people?
Having to move on once a project's finished? Not necessarily. It can be interesting to work in different places. People aren't always looking for a job that pays really well. It's more about gaining experience and creating a network.
So money's not important?
Well, I haven't started work myself, but according to all the articles I read, it's more about the different rates of pay. If you have a good salary, you probably have enough to enjoy life. But if you're only earning the minimum wage, how do you get by? That's my biggest worry.
I looked at that Richard Greaves survey on work-life balance.
Oh, good.
Only 48% of people believe that their work-life balance will improve.
Is that a statistic that surprises you?
It's hard to say. I wonder what the survey actually asked. Was it just, will your work-life balance improve? Or did the interviewers break that down? I mean, did they actually ask the people who took part, do you enjoy spending more time at work than home?
Good point. See if you can find out more. Finn, what else have you been researching?
Learning new skills. The general view is that employers are just going to want their workers to constantly upskill, and apparently employers will expect them to attend courses at weekends or after work, not as part of the working day.
I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as the company pays for it.
And think about it. If you were smart, you'd study things that would help you if you had to change companies.
I hadn't thought about that. Yes, good thinking.
What about mobile technology? How might employees be affected now that phones and tablets make it possible to stay connected to work at all times?
It's great. You can use mobile technology, your device, to work where you like, on the way to class or the office.
The media often focuses on the negatives, but as far as I'm concerned, having a tablet I can carry with me means I can manage my studies and my family commitments more easily. I actually think that in the future, mobile technology will reduce employees' stress.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
So let's focus on the impact of artificial intelligence on jobs. To what extent do you think it'll help people in their professions? or be a threat?
I was reading about architects using AI in the future. The writer was saying that one day architects will use holograms. Then their clients could see a three-dimensional house rather than just looking at a flat plan.
As soon as one architect starts to use AI, all the rival architects in the same area will have to use AI too. That's the only way they'll manage to keep their clients.
True. How about doctors? Imagine if they had to give urgent medical attention to someone, but they weren't qualified to do it. A hospital specialist could use AI and virtual reality to guide a doctor through, like, a complex procedure.
Yes, in an emergency situation, AI could really make the difference.
And what about the law?
Well, the lawyers I know are always anxious about the amount of work they have to get through. But AI could help them with a whole lot of routine tasks, and that should make some of that anxiety go away.
Yes, it probably could. Also, if you're a sports referee, that could be a job that's affected.
In what way?
Using AI would mean there were no mistakes. It would know for sure if a ball was out, for example.
And you can't accuse AI of bias.
No.
I can imagine that one day AI might do away with the need for human referees.
I think so too.
All right, let's move on to human.
That is the end of Part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers to Part 3. Exam practice. Test 1. Listening Part 4. You will hear a student giving a presentation about the way that different insect species are being threatened. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
So today I'm going to be talking about the way that different insect species are being threatened. In other words, the reasons why some insect populations are declining and might even become extinct in the 21st century. I'll also talk about the consequences if extinction occurs and some possible ways to prevent that. Let's start with the reasons. First of all, when we look at what's going on in Europe, we can see a huge decline in certain species of insect. This is partly because farmers no longer allow certain plants to grow in their fields. But farmers are not entirely to blame. The gardens that people have nowadays don't always contain the kind of plant that insects need. So perhaps we need to rethink what we're putting there. In more tropical regions of the world, for example, the Amazon rainforest, scientists have noticed that the number of beetle and butterfly species also appears to be diminishing. They put this down to climate change, rather than, say, the fragmentation of habitat, but more research has to be done. And then there's the use of pesticide, and of course, this happens everywhere in the world. Pesticide is designed to kill a range of insects that farmers don't like, but it also kills bees, which they need. Pesticide might not kill bees directly, but we know that it impacts on their spatial skills, meaning they cannot make sense of what they see around them, and also their memory. This means that they cannot remember how to get back to their hive. So, why worry about whether insects become extinct? Well, the consequences would obviously be terrible, not just for them, but for us. Pretty much everywhere on the planet, with the exception of Antarctica, insects are at the bottom of the food chain. They're absolutely vital, because if there were no insects, there would also be no birds or lizards or mammals. Then there's the role that insects play in crop production. We use them to pollinate our fruit and vegetables, and it would be impossible to manage without them. It's also worth remembering that scientists are now studying plants to find out whether they might be a source of medicine in the future. If these plants disappear because of insect extinction, that would be another lost opportunity. So, there's some possible ways we could prevent insect extinction, some more controversial than others. I think it's a given that governments have to do something about the sale of pesticides. In fact, some countries have already passed laws to ban certain products. That's a good move forward. But ordinary people can also make a difference. If we cut down on how much meat we ate, some of the land now used for grazing could be turned back into insect-friendly environments. I'd like to finish with a positive story. There's a place in California called the Antioch Dunes. In the 1900s, people looked at the dunes and the sand that formed them and thought, that sand is a great raw material. And because they needed to build houses, they removed tons and tons of the sand and turned it into bricks. It wasn't really until the 1960s that biologists suddenly realized that the Antioch Dunes had actually been home to some unique species of plant and insect. But by this time, there was only one species of butterfly left, the metalmark butterfly, and a major problem for the metalmark was that it required a certain plant to survive, something called the naked stem buckwheat. It was on this plant that it laid its eggs, so yes, you can see why the buckwheat was important. Well, in the end, the only way that the biologists could get the buckwheat to start growing properly was to replace the sand. That was a great first step, but the metalmark butterfly is still endangered. In the last decade, a significant number of butterflies and plants have been destroyed in the Antioch Dunes by fire. So now, the biologists are limiting the number of visitors who can wander around the dunes. That's fair enough, I think. All right, the final point I want to make about the project to restore the Antioch Dunes area is to do with how much land is required. When we think about the concept of conservation, we often assume we need to set aside a large amount of it. And that might be true for some large species. But in this case, relatively little land was required. But the important thing is to leave it undisturbed. Okay, now what I want to talk about.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the listening test. In the Ielts test, You would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.